Just about every gamer has played or at least heard of Skyrim, the single-player game that has defied all trends. Usually, a great single-player game would peak its players at the start of its life cycle and then die off to a mere few thousand players after a few months. Let's use this example graph of Hogwarts Legacy. It's blown up and then died off incredibly quickly. Why? Well, because it's single-player. Once you've finished it, you finished it. But Skyrim is never finished. No matter how many times you do quests, you can always do it with a different build, in a different order, or just explore secrets in the world. Some secrets are still being discovered even today. Skyrim was a tribute to video games and pushed the limits of the hardware available at the time on the Xbox 360 and PS3 consoles. Because of its popularity, Skyrim has been re-released and re-released and re-released. It has been the center of many internet memes and is one of the largest, if not the largest, modding community in video gaming history. But Jack, how can a game that came out in 2011 that people are still playing and actively modding that sold over 60 million copies be bad for a studio? I'm glad you asked, random citizen, because that's exactly what we're going to explore today. We're going to take a deep dive into what's allowed Skyrim to thrive for over a decade, why people are still modding it, and how it's contributed to the complete destruction of Bethesda's reputation and undermined every other game they've launched. And most importantly, why Elder Scrolls 6 could be Bethesda's make or break game. Skyrim released way back on November 11, 2011. And the hype around it was insane. When it finally dropped, it was the first Elder Scrolls game to reach the mainstream gaming scene. Previous titles like Oblivion and Morrowind didn't break out into the mainstream, they simply had their small following but were very well received by those fans. Skyrim, however, received perfect 10 out of 10s from multiple reviewers and received worldwide praise for its quality, technical feats, and pushing the envelope for single-player RPGs. The world that Bethesda had crafted and then extended upon with DLCs like Dawnguard and Dragonborn saw players completely captivated. But that's not why it was able to last over a decade. That longevity can be attributed majorly to the modding community. Skyrim is built on Bethesda's own creation engine. This engine is not only extremely customizable by players, but Bethesda actually gave those creation engine tools to players, allowing them not only to create weapons, armor, and character models, they've been able to create full-size DLC quest mods, new areas, fully voiced custom NPCs, and completely overhaul just about every aspect of the game. Skyrim, later in its life, became a canvas for modders to go absolutely crazy. Downloading these mods is easier than ever with tools like Mod Organizer, Vortex, and even Wabberjack. Players are able to install 1 or 1,000 mods with a click of a button. Because of its popularity, Bethesda of course had to cash in. In 2013, Bethesda launched Skyrim Legendary Edition, which was simply Skyrim bundled with all 3 of its paid DLCs, Dawnguard, Dragonborn, and Hearthfire, which is common practice for most games, so no hate there. Bethesda then finally brought Skyrim to the Xbox One and PS4, launching Skyrim Special Edition. This was a remaster allowing for higher quality assets and visual updates like volumetric god rays. This wasn't received immediately well by the PC modding community, as Skyrim moved from its 32-bit architecture to 64-bit, which broke the mods and they all had to be completely remade for the new special edition. This update, however, went extremely well for console gamers as they were finally able to play it on their new systems. And later, mod support came for consoles for the first time in gaming history. They also included the Creation Club, which were like mods but paid. Bethesda had vetted them and implemented them themselves. This wasn't well received by anyone. Bethesda went on to release a special edition on Switch, then Skyrim VR, which I just played and bought. It's pretty fun. But of course, they didn't stop there. The final edition they released was Skyrim The Anniversary Edition in 2021 to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Skyrim. This wasn't exactly a remaster like the Special Edition, but you could upgrade from the Special Edition to the Anniversary Edition, and it bundled together 70 Creation Club creations into one big bundle. They also added fishing to the game with the help of a creation. which is cool, I guess. Can't say I've ever used it. Aside from those complete re-releases, the Skyrim VR version and Switch version for gamers just broadened their market share and brought it to more players. With Bethesda increasing their market on their end, the modding community worked tirelessly to keep Skyrim going. Skyrim Special Edition, at the time of writing, has almost 100,000 mods and over 5 billion mod downloads, which absolutely towers over other games listed on Nexus Mods. Modders have been able to bring Skyrim up to par with other AAA games released this year in terms of graphic quality. Some mod packs even requiring new 40 series cards in their recommended specs. Without modding, Skyrim wouldn't have the privilege of lasting anywhere near as long as it has. Now we've discussed the journey Skyrim has taken and how much of a community and player base it really has. In order to understand how this has had a detrimental effect on Bethesda, we need to understand a bit more about Bethesda as a studio. So we're going to take a look at their release cycle, their franchises, and how those franchises have been received by the wider gaming community. We're also going to look at how Skyrim set gamers' expectations for Bethesda's other games. Bethesda is a studio well known for crafting incredibly large single-player open-world role-playing experiences, such as Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and Starfield. Alongside this, they also have their smaller single-player games such as Doom, Wolfenstein, and Dishonored. We're going to focus on the open-world franchises of Fallout and Elder Scrolls and their most recent game, Starfield, since these are the games that most gamers would agree are the lifeblood of Bethesda. Since the release of Skyrim, the expectations fans had of Bethesda games were incredibly high. This led to fans extremely excited when they brought out their next large-scale open-world game, Fallout 4, which was met with mixed reviews. Most would say that Fallout 4 was a great game. I personally really enjoyed it, but those who are hardcore Fallout fans would agree that Fallout 4 wasn't a good Fallout game, especially when compared to the quality of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which are held in high praise by these Fallout fans. Now, normally, one mixed reviewed game wouldn't detrimentally affect a studio, but it's important to take a closer look at the release cycle that Bethesda has had on their large-scale games. Fallout New Vegas came out in 2010. Fans had to wait 5 years for the next Fallout entry. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion came out in 2006. And again, fans had to wait 5 years for the next Elder Scrolls entry. That was a long time ago. Now we're in an age where the expectation of quality in video games is extremely high. The Elder Scrolls 6 still has no release date in sight, and Fallout 5 hasn't even been properly announced yet. On top of that, we're coming up on Fallout 4's 10-year anniversary. With such a long wait between games, the expectation for Bethesda only rises, which is exactly what happened when we saw the release of Starfield. Starfield was the most anticipated game of 2023. Everyone had high expectations for Starfield to last. It was a massive open world, it had the same modding support as Skyrim and Fallout, but with the added scope of space. Starfield promised to be the biggest game gamers had ever seen, but Bethesda failed to meet the expectations of gamers. Gamers got burnt. They were hoping for Skyrim in space, a game that would last them until Elder Scrolls 6 came out. But unfortunately, the game they received didn't even last them until 2024. Gamers who want to experience the Elder Scrolls or Fallout worlds will have to play Elder Scrolls Online or Fallout 76, both of which had an abysmal launch period. Elder Scrolls Online, thanks to ZeniMax, was able to do a complete U-turn and create an Elder Scrolls MMO that's absolutely worth playing. But it's not a true Bethesda game. It's just an MMO in the Elder Scrolls universe published by Bethesda. Fallout 76, it's still not in a great place, but at least now it's a playable place. This is how Skyrim had that detrimental effect on Bethesda and their newer games. Gamers are expecting these massive and great things, and they've failed to deliver. People are just waiting for Bethesda to launch their next game to rival the size and the enjoyment of Skyrim. And at the rate we're going, that looks like it's gonna be Elder Scrolls 6. Bethesda's next big game is slated to be Elder Scrolls 6. We know almost nothing about it other than it's in development and will hopefully be releasing in the next few years. So knowing that, and knowing how Skyrim was such a massive success, what does The Elder Scrolls 6 need to do in order to create the same formula that has worked for Skyrim? Well, it comes down to two major things: Bethesda's creation engine and mod support. Without the freedom of the Bethesda creation engine, Elder Scrolls 6 won't last anywhere near as long as Skyrim did. Modders, of course, will still find a way to mod the game, but without the widespread accessibility for modders, we won't see a modding scene anywhere close to the size of Skyrim's. Bethesda will also need to support these mod creators. Whether that's them adding a creation store is a bit contentious, but Bethesda should provide the modding tools at launch, if not very shortly after. Skyrim modders have access to the Skyrim creation kit within Steam, where even beginner modders are able to create their own custom mods, and this accessibility helped Skyrim thrive to billions of downloads. With all that in mind, let's discuss the possibility that The Elder Scrolls 6 flops. Bethesda needs Elder Scrolls 6 to succeed, and succeed well, especially after the letdown that Starfield was. With Bethesda's release cycle that we mentioned earlier, if Elder Scrolls 6 fails, we won't be looking at another open world Bethesda RPG until 2030 or beyond, which presumably would be Fallout 5. And this is why I believe that Elder Scrolls 6 has to succeed and has to be a massive hit to prove that Bethesda didn't drop a one-hit wonder with Skyrim, and that they can still produce the high-quality games that defy the norms of single-player RPG games and captivate audiences for years to come. Wrapping up this deep dive into Skyrim and its impact on Bethesda, it's clear that Skyrim has been a double-edged sword for the studio. On the one hand, it set an unprecedented standard for single-player RPGs, with its amazing modding community and re-releases that kept it alive in gamers' hearts for over a decade. On the other hand, Skyrim's monumental success has cast a long shadow over Bethesda's subsequent projects, raising the expectations to nearly unobtainable levels. As we look forward to Elder Scrolls 6, Bethesda faces a pivotal moment. They either rise to the challenge and deliver a game that lives up to Skyrim's legacy, or risk being defined by a single masterpiece in an otherwise inconsistent portfolio. The stakes are high, and the future of the Elder Scrolls series, and perhaps Bethesda itself, depends on their ability to recapture the magic that made Skyrim a legend in the gaming universe.